See if we can't get this working here. Good evening, everybody. Today's date is June 11th, 2021. It is a Friday. It's 7:05, and I am your host, Tom Kaczynski. Welcome to Tom Unscripted, where I come on here, complain about everything that we are not going to fix, and we somehow continue to keep on trucking. Been kind of in a lousy mood today, so you're just going to have to bear with me. But hello to everyone who comes in. Good to see you here in the stream, or glad you're watching the replay. You may not be hearing from me for a couple minutes because I got some things I got to try to figure out, which is a big problem and a small problem, but it's nothing that all of us don't experience. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about an ongoing frustration of mine that just drives me nuts, which is I watch so much people invest so much energy in solutions they know cannot succeed. It amazes me how much energy people spend doing things that have been done before that haven't worked because they can't imagine anything else and because they're too out there about what is true. For instance, truth number one, not only is no solution coming from Washington, but no solutions coming from anyone in the political class who's willing to play the game enough to be liked down there. Pro tip, to fix the sort of problems that exist in this country, as well as many other countries around the world, you would need such an outsider that they would never get past the many gatekeepers in D.C. And you saw, let's say you took Trump at face value just for a second. Pretend you did. Assuming you did, you saw the limitations of what that could accomplish. Now, on the other hand, if you took at the value that he was controlled opposition, you might look at things differently. But it doesn't really matter. What does matter is the fact that D.C. is going to do awful things because we see around the world, between countries, from democracies to dictatorships and from communists to capitalists, the same things are being enacted. Unending lockdowns like they're doing in the UK, the idea that you're going to have an international tracking regime and that if you aren't participating in it, you won't be welcome to participate in society. This is the future you need to be preparing for, and you have either A, submitted to that future, if you, for instance, are someone who's taken the jab, just use that as one example, or you are someone who is going to be resistant to that future. And if you're going to be resistant to that future, you don't have time to think in terms of the next election cycle, the midterms, and what you're going to be doing in 2024, because the truth is you will already be compelled to act against your interest. We are entering the biodigital age. If history exists in any meaningful terms, this will be called the period from, let's say, probably about 1910 to, let's call it 2020, will be understood as the age of propaganda. And all the wars will be understood to be the result of propaganda of elites against their individual citizens and their respective nations to lead them into wars that were against the interests of their different polities. But this is now giving way because the internet makes that pretty much impossible and inefficient, and you can find out the discrepancies too quickly, and ultimately people just don't care enough. So what you have is the regression of the human species into a slug-like existence where all of us choose to do nothing because comfort is our highest priority. I told you this morning that we are now living in a technocratic, secular, let me make sure I said this right, I want to say the exact same way I said it. I said we are living in a technocratic, secular. See, this is what happens. My mind says, all right, so let me think for 1 second. What did I say this morning? I was saying that we were going forward and we were living in a technocracy because we were counting on our tools, and it was secular because we didn't actually believe in anything, and that ultimately we were living in a system where we were going to give complete control over it. It's a form of autocracy, really. And that's the future. It's going to be an autocracy. We cannot escape. Because what will end up happening is that the inefficiency of what people are doing with their lives is such a regression, it doesn't work. And look, this is the nature of what they created. This is what they wanted. But ultimately, to make people do things is going to require some sort of mass force. You can either do that through violence, which is inefficient, or you can do it by promising people happy outcomes where they think they're playing games instead of doing work. In other words, you can hack their brains. So this is the future we're going into. You're going to see a future where increasingly humans are biodigital creatures that are being monitored and used, where our minds are allowed to escape, theoretically, into some imagined world. Or maybe not. Maybe we'll just be imprisoned there. And then on the other hand, you'll have a world where the people who choose not to adhere to this agenda are being constantly punished, attacked, and castigated. So that this will ultimately be humanism. That was it. That was the other word. So it's a humanistic philosophy, because the idea that everyone can have whatever they want and everything that they need and they don't have to care anymore is incredibly compelling. And if you're going to fight against that, if you're going to fight for your humanity, if you're going to fight for this being a spirit-filled, existence, then you're going to have to understand that you are now fighting a holy war, because you're going to have to say something's better than optimal comfort, that there's meaning and purpose beyond the idea of who can be the best slug while we play brain games and our bodies go about being served as, by, or as part automaton. And that's what the technocracy is all about, this idea that tools will get us out of our responsibilities. And I get that people are going to go for that. But if you're someone who's going to try to hold the line, you need to know this is a fight that's coming. Good to see you, Todd, and good to everyone who's here this evening. Now, I'm telling you all this because you're wasting your energy. If you're like, how am I going to get the next big promotion at work? Who's going to win in the 2024 election? Who gives a flying damn? You're fighting now to retain your humanity. You're fighting to retain your soul. You are fighting in an unholy war. And I'm going to have to go out there, and I've realized this, and I don't enjoy doing it. I really don't relish it, but I'm going to make the theological case, not tonight, but I will make the case for you why when you start changing your DNA, you are no longer human, you are no longer guaranteed salvation, and while the Lord will do as the Lord will under grace, that this is literally where we're at the game. And then you see everyone being compelled and acted upon to support this agenda and act so in embrace of it is because this is the future you're going to have to face. And if we are going to stop it, it's going to require a large collective effort that is going to be painful, fail, and leads to, for most people, probably some form of persecution and potential martyrdom at the hands of a system that hates the idea that you want to be human. And this is a dour message that nobody wants to hear, and it's the truth. And it's really obvious it's the truth, and it's so obvious and so big that people do what they do when things are big and obvious. They don't process them. They say, well, I'm just going to focus on what I can handle. So that's like saying that, okay, that a giant meteor is about to hit the Earth in about 10 minutes, but you're just going to focus on not speeding because, hey, you don't want to break the law in your last 10 minutes of existence. And it's this level of absurdity that kind of makes out our way of thinking. And yeah, I'm sure, Todd, people are probably crazy there in Canada, and also good to see you, Norman. I know things are nutty in the UK too. We are going to have to do something different. Borders don't matter as much. Nations don't. I mean, yeah, there's differences between peoples and stuff. But ultimately, what has to be formulated is we are heading into an age of autocracy. And the reason is because democracies are too corrupt and too inefficient to continue. Ultimately, they will be replaced by a technological autocracy where we put our faith in the computer or the elites who run it. That's the default outcome. Or it will have to be something almost theological in terms of what the autocracy that fights it is, that you're literally going to have to feel like your soul's at stake. Otherwise, you're not going to risk your life to stop anything. And the one thing that everyone should have learned in the last 5 years is the utter spinelessness and lack of utility from the supposed, American liberty base. And it's just, I talked about this the other day, but I'll mention it just in passing because it is important, is that the old formulation of virtue and liberty upon which this was founded mattered. Virtue defined liberty. It defined what were things you would do when you weren't free. When you just have liberty as an end unto itself, you have anarchy, you have chaos. You have even the Apple saying we can do whatever we want. Let's just go for it. And that's where we've ended up. That's where the West is. That's why you see Mystery Babylon sitting there in the harbor holding her little torch up high, in case you don't know what that's really about. And we've reached the point where we just have to call things what they are. And we're going to have to be honest. And look, I'll be a brother here to everyone, and I'll say the things. And I've come to accept that's my job in this. My unhappy job is to say things I don't want to say, you don't want to hear, which are true, but need to be said. And it's good to have some friends here while I'm doing it. Good to see you, Patches. Good to see you, Sam. Good to see everyone who's here this evening. And, we'll go through it. If you guys have questions you want to throw up, we'll throw them up. But what I've been doing, and I've been hitting the books a little bit, is trying to understand what the next moves are. Because I will tell you what my plan was. My plan is very simple. Get the F out so that I didn't have to see any of it. But there's nowhere you can go. I mean, even earlier today, I was listening to it. Not that I would ever go there, but Pakistan's now going to lock down your SIM cards if you don't go ahead and get the jab. So the idea that you can escape these battles is sort of absurd. We're heading toward tribulation, and tribulation is all about choices and refining. And the way you refine things is you put them to insane heat, and you see what breaks or what becomes harder. And so all of us has to be, there to do it. Dana's right. Someone has to say it has come full circle. That was my original book. That book did okay for me. You know what? Everyone loves someone has to say it. It really gave it was kind of a basic understanding, but if you've never heard of the Fed, it's a decent place to start. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm any, G. Edward Griffin or Ron Paul, but at least I know a scam where I see one. And the Fed is a scam. The banks are a scam. You all know. And most of it's a scam. But what isn't a scam is when you start building your new foundations on truth, and that you seek a truth at the center. You say, we are not going to sacrifice that truth for any purpose. Think of the Fremen from Dune if you need a sci-fi example of what we're going to be dealing with. It's probably the best thing I could come up with, having a conversation with a friend earlier today about the challenges. No, I do not, Todd, actually, although I think that there are possibilities. There are things called self-spreading vaccines. I do not believe these are ones. I don't have any evidence of that. But I mean, it could through a blood transfusion, but I don't think when you have the viral shedding, it happens that way. Although I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong but the reason I think I'm not wrong about that is because choice is an element of this, and it has to be. How should I put it? There are certain rules, I think, that have to apply for the culpability of actions and what consciousness can and can't do. Ultimately, if something bad happens to you on some level, I think you have to consent to it. And I know that sounds kind of crazy. And sometimes you don't really realize the levels, and that's why you really have to work to be aware of yourself. That's why when you win every battle, you're literally figuring it out. I pray I'm right too, Todd, because if I'm wrong, we're all screwed. And I'm not saying we won't get sick. You can get sick. I will be very clear what I think can happen. You can get quite sick. In fact, you can get sicker because your body doesn't have the same approach. But what doesn't happen, as far as I'm aware, is you don't have the density that you would require to begin rewriting how that works. However, to scare you a little bit, I have heard rumors that there are things in the test. And I've seen some evidence that requires a lot more investigation. The problem is we don't ever see investigation of the evidence, right? Lady M, good to see you. Susan, glad you're here. And welcome, everybody. You're just listening to me rant and be pissed off as usual. But what I'm saying to you is what the future is going to require. And I'm going to try to save some time because it isn't worth it for me to waste your time or you to waste my time talking about things that aren't going to matter. So we could describe the colors of the fall, right? We could talk about the problems along the way that are going to happen. But unless you're serious about the major problem, which is as simple as this, the fact that humanity is going to freely give away its sovereign choices for the idea that we're going to give protection over to a system. Until and unless you're addressing that, there's nothing else that really matters. Good to see you, Florin. Much love for my friends down in Dixie, by the way. Appreciate that. And I'd love to have a chance to come visit y'all again. I haven't had a proper biscuit in a while, being up here in Yankee Land. Although there are certain benefits. I tell you what, the Quebecois know what they're doing when it comes to cooking. Of course they do. They're French. Why wouldn't they, right? But one of the things that the dirty jurors, well, I remember there's a lot of good diners there. That's certainly something to say, too. I always thought New Jersey should have a bumper sticker or should have a sign that says, forget about it. It's the only state where I think they charge you a toll to leave, which is different from a lot of other states, but it sort of has that prison vibe that fits the garden. Anyway, but there are nice places. There are nice places everywhere, and there are decent people in lots of places. But the fight ahead of us is what I'm all about. And it's not a fight I want. It's not a fight I want to talk about. It's not a fight I want to think about. It's something I work very hard not to think about, not to talk about. And I spend a lot of time in my garden, in my orchard, and all sorts of other places not thinking about the fact that we are now fighting in a battle against the transformation of humanity, and that's going to require us to have a degree of organization that is not one we've been willing to do before. I mean, really, we're going to end up outside the financial system. We're going to end up outside the political system. We are going to be hated by the people who, frankly, statistically speaking, and the odds actually bear this out, are getting themselves sicker rather than healthier by these interventions, and who are more likely to have relapses, which tells you they don't work, than anything else. But it's a leading edge, and look, it's if it wasn't this, it will be the next thing. The technology's here, right? We like to play with the box. Put humanity in a garden with apples, and they'll try every flavor. If it doesn't end up being this, it will be the next thing, and it will be soon. And if we don't have a context and a construct about what we're preserving, none of that matters. And I've talked increasingly about this idea of organic or humanity, GMO-free humanity, and it's something I'm going to fight for. Where do I see the world in 2050? A terrible version of the Matrix, or something that looks like a 1500s Abbey. I don't know. I think that what will happen is there will be many fewer people, And I think the world will have increasingly a singular order of looking at things. I'd say the odds are, absent biblical intervention, that we will probably have an artificially run order that is governed by AI. But on the other hand, there is a lot of scriptural evidence to suggest that won't happen. And there are still some people who believe in the old ways and who will survive to fight for that. I think that is good to see you, Alan. Good to see you, Norman, by the way. I think that now is the time. Well, let me tell you what I was telling my friends, actually. It's better to do it this way. I was talking and I was trying to find a historical construct to think about what we're facing. And I kept thinking about the English Civil War. And I did this because it's the last war I can think of that was big in Western civilization, where you basically had people fighting on the side of grace against the side of the state mandating things of a bigger system. And admittedly, it's not a perfect scenario because Charles I is not nearly as frightening, and Cromwell's got his issues too, Lord knows, especially if you're an Irishman. But the thing about it is people came together and they were fighting for a bigger idea that was not ideological, but they were fighting for a certain definition of grace. And I think that that is where we're going to have to go, because it's obvious we are not going to fight for our lives against a system that promises to extend them, to make them more comfortable, to make them easier, even if it makes them less meaningful. The transition we've made in this world, the book Homo Deus talks about this brilliantly. What ends up happening, I'm a roundhead over here, so keep that in mind. But one of the things that's really, and precedence to you, Todd, what you end up having to do is you end up looking at this battle that we're coming into, and you realize you can't win it if you're fighting for your life. If you're fighting for your life, you've already surrendered. You got to be fighting for your soul's on the line. You're not going to care enough to stop anything, and they're going to win. And so this now has to become a crusade. It has to become a holy war. It has to become all of those things. And I know those are not terms you're ready for or I'm ready for, and because it requires something different from us. You know, one of the things I learned over a lifetime in dissident politics, which I did not seek. In fact, I sought seclusion at every opportunity. The Lord has a sense of humor, keep dragging me back into this crap, is that you become almost like an avatar for what it is that you are preaching. And you get scrutinized fairly and unfairly, and you end up having to take on the attributes of the positions you defend. If we need to be a holy movement to fight this, we will all have to be better men and better women and restore things to a position that, people aren't going to be comfortable with. But then again, I'm sure if you asked a Roman in the 2nd century AD, what the world would look like in Italy 400 years later, they wouldn't reckon to the world post-Justinian's plague, right? So these things do happen, and we now are going to have to reconnect. Now, I will say this, and I've said this publicly, I've said it privately, I think people who have taken this intervention are going to be sick for the rest of their lives, are going to be controlled in ways they can't see, and I think a great many of them are eventually going to end up dying or being incapacitated. I believe that. Time will bear it out. There's evidence out there of different directions. We'll see. I don't believe it's a benign intervention because of all the actors involved, the amount of duplicity involved in it. I think that it's really going to be ugly, what's going to be required. And I think what will happen, unfortunately, is the very people who've been doing the most to try to protect the foolish from making poor decisions are going to be attacked by them. And we have to admit that. And that's why a society of exclusion is going to emerge, because as we fight for an autocracy, we're now going to be fighting for survival, and we're going to be fighting survival out of very simple precept at the core of it that will require a great many moral precepts to have any chance of achieving, which is to defend our soul, defend our natural sanctity, and defend the fact that we're a creation of the Lord. I think that's really important. So that's it. The church militant will be back. It may have a different name, but ultimately that's where it's going to end up. You will see crusaders and stuff. And if you study the history of the 30 Years' War and other things, you would find, or the Crusades, you pick a lot of different ones, things are going to get very ugly. And the thing about it is, I want this to be clear, is that, and I know no one cares, but truth deserves, maybe, who knows, maybe one day historians will piece out the pieces of this and they'll tell what happened to us. It was not the people who wanted to live the moral lives who picked the conflict. It was the need to defend our own integrity, because we were never going to be permitted a chance to escape and be on our own. The single biggest rallying cry I've heard my entire life for the American population, for the half of it who tried to be decent people, is just please leave us alone, leave us alone. But from rainbow flags to adults marching around in leather diapers, to, misgendering people, to taking away everything that's decent, to labeling, decency as bigotry, all of these things, they have declared war upon what is wholesome, what is holy, what is virtuous, and what is right. And so we can either accept that and surrender, or we build an alternative and we fight it. And, we can't win this battle on our own. We can only win this battle with the power of the Lord behind us. The numbers are not going to be in favor. The forces are not in our favor. The finances not in our favor. Nothing is in our favor except for the fact that, like Gideon, we have the Lord on our side if we serve his will. And the one thing I can say with absolute certainty about all these major institutions, every major institution in America, every major denomination of all the major churches, but I pretty much feel comfortable saying that none of them are speaking the words of the Lord. None of them are standing up for humanity as it is. All of them are trying to protect themselves. Some know more than others. Some are scared. Some are evil. Some are misguided. And none of them have a solution. And the solution is very simple. Those who aren't must now begin to gather one another. And so that's why I'm here. I'm going to keep talking, and I'm going to keep preaching, and I'm going to keep sharing what I see. And I'm going to be a voice in the wilderness, which is what I can do. I may take a little time off after this week to try to figure out what to say. I mean, I'm looking at my stack of Puritan books again, which is what I always do when it comes to these things. It's like, how do you deal with the fight that you don't want with a system that hates you? And ultimately, the first step is very easy. It's to begin to identify who we are, who we connect to. And I'll just tell you who I'm going to connect to. It's simple. I'm going to connect to Christians of good character who are protecting their bodily sovereignty. I think it's absolutely what's required. I think that's the problem with the right conservative side. We just want to be left in peace, and things have to get worse. You can't leave things in peace. This is the thing. The state of the world is not peace. It's war. You have to recognize that evil is constantly there, and you need to recognize evil is a thing. We are not fighting an ideology. I have this argument so often with people, and I'm not saying you, Norman, but I want to bring this up. So many people say, oh, it's the problem of the communists or the capitalists or the socialists or the Marxists or the Nazis or the Democrats or the Republicans, or the Tories, or the liberals, or, pick your group, the Mensheviks, the Bolsheviks, this group, that group. The problem is you're fighting evil. And what is evil? Evil is the relativism that says there is no good. It's just whatever you want. It's the idea that there's choices that are of equal validity, and there just isn't. You need to be fighting for truth with a capital T, with the understanding, A, you won't reach it, and B, you must chase it. You must run until you have nothing left in your system chasing this thing, and when you pass out, at least you'll have shown that you earned the right to be considered because you did the best you could. You did something, and then that is earning the grace. That's the good works that's involved with it. And it's not that you earn it because you've achieved it. You can't achieve it. It's all futility. The existentialists were right about that, but it's that you showed your good intent. And intent is all we have here. Dana's right. God is a divider. Satan is a uniter. And people don't want to hear that. My message is going to get increasingly divisive. And I'm going to lose a lot of good people along the way. I'm going to lose a lot of friends. Going to lose family. Going to lose, people. And going to gain someone new, man. That's it. Our weapons and our enemy is on a spiritual plane, man. You nailed it. Princes, powers and principalities. But evil exists in this world, too. I don't want you to think that I'm just, Tom's just branding things. No, you know what's evil. You know what's evil. What good comes of things that are, all the things that are out there, all the things that are popularized in our woke culture. Every one of them's evil. Every single one of them, and you know it. It's not hard, and everyone's afraid to say, oh, they'll judge me. Well, judge me. That's fine. You want to stone me like a medieval prophet? Fine. Here I am. Go ahead. Do your best. Jeremiah in the house. I don't care. Because you know what? This world's damned anyway. I'm not playing for my life. I don't care about my life other than my obligations. I care about my soul. And I'm not going to risk my soul to save my life. And if there's one mantra that I want to give you guys, you do not risk your souls to save your life. And if I want people to understand one thing, that's what it took. That's what Jesus did. He wasn't going to risk his soul by being disobedient. You know, think about it. He's sitting there in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? And he's saying, Lord, if there be any other way, but I will do your will. This is God as man, right? This is Jesus we're talking about. And he went there and he took his stripes. And he was mocked and ridiculed by the people he came to save. And he died. And he rose on the third day. But he had to die because it was the only thing that could happen. But he did it because that was what was right. We're going to have to be willing to do that again. And we're going to have to be willing to go ahead and say there are things more valuable than life. And where that goes, I don't know. There are ugly things that may follow. Let's own that up front. Everything is always a question of numbers, time, tactics, strategy, but all of it in service to the same end. We have to begin caring for one another now. We have to do that. And Keenan is right about one other thing too, by the way. Yeah, the free market, it's the obsession with equality. It's wanting to quantify everything. Some things are just true. You know it. For instance, marriage is between a man and a woman. Of civilization. True. You know? I'll tell you another one. No one wants to hear this. You know, if you don't believe in Christ, heaven isn't for you. True. Because you're not going to pass on judgment. You better hope you pass on grace. And, you know, now it'll be up to the Lord to decide if he knew you or he didn't. And you know how he decides that? What did you do? What did you do to prevent people from falling astray? What did you do to lead the little ones away from the dangers that were out there? And you know what you did. And you know what you didn't do. And I know none of us want to do this work, by the way. I don't want to do this work. I hate doing this work. I could sit here, shut off this camera, hang out in the bunker, go downstairs, and none of you would see me again, and I'd ride it out till near the end. I could do that. I want to do that. I would be happier to do that. But I can't do that. Because to whom much is given, much is expected. And that's what it is. And I have gifts. So instead, I get to go out and have awful people say awful things about me, and people jeer at me. He's the evil, bad prophet. Okay. But I didn't lie. Huh? Yeah, something like that, right? But it's true. And it's just time to cut through all the shit. You know, time for us to organize. And we're going to have to figure out what it's about. And I'm going to ask people, and I'm going to find people. And if there's 10 of us, there's 10 of us. And if there's 20 of us, 20 of us. And if there's 10,000 of us, there's 10,000 of us. I don't know how many people are. It doesn't matter. Just going to put the message out. And it's not about me. It's really not about me. It's about the idea that there's something unique in us, that we were created, that we have to defend if we are to have any meaning at all. Because otherwise we're just a cog in the machine, a blip in the matrix, a mistake. And that's what evil wants you to believe, that you are a mistake, that you are an accident, that you are a random chance scattering of particles. But that's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches he knew you in the womb. And every one of us has value. And every one of us has the potential for virtue and redemption. And that's what it's about. It's about the reclamation of what we gave away. And we gave it away because we were defending it for ourselves, but not for others. And look, I'm not here to tell you we can just let things go anymore. I'm here to tell you we are going to have to pick fights. I'm here to tell you we're going to sell people. And they say, oh, well, you know, that's just how it is. I'm like, no, why is it that way? Well, what do you mean? Do you have a problem with that? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see two men kissing in public anymore. I'm sick of that. I'm done with it. You're going to shut your channel, shut down. Good, shut down my channel. Don't want it. I don't want to see people robbed by their banks. You know, usury is a sin too. I'm not here to say, oh, yeah, it's so terrible when poor people take a $100 check from the government, but I look the other way where $1 billion goes to a corporation. Just Throw truth bombs. Keep throwing them. And I'm going to throw them. And, I'm going to start with what I believe. And look, do I practice what I preach always? Hell no. None of us do. We're sinners. That's why we need Christ. If we weren't sinners, we wouldn't need Christ. But we are sinners, and every one of us knows that. Every one of us is a hypocrite. Every one of us is a fraud. But sometimes, in spite of these truths, we still manage to do good things. And I thank the Holy Spirit in that. I thank the Comforter that tells us those things. And the little bit of courage we can occasionally muster that maybe shows there's something worth redeeming. And that's it. And the world did not understand, Jesus Christ our Lord. He did not. And it just, and I don't want to be the guy. I've been struggling. Dana would tell you if she's in the other room, but I've been struggling because I don't know what to say. I mean, I could tell you all sorts of interesting things and you'd watch it, but it doesn't change anything. And I'm not here to just waste your time. I'm not here to just talk for talking, Honestly, if I was just doing it for money, writing the books is more lucrative and faster. And I'm not here to say, okay, you can keep everything you like about this world and then just do these two little things and it goes away. No, there's going to be real sacrifice. Things have to get a lot worse before you have any hope of them getting better. And the newsflash is it won't be in our lifetimes if it happens. Save, of course, that if, the Lord comes down. But you know what? Our job is to do the work, not to think of the hour of that. And I'm not counting on that happening in our or any other lifetime. I can make the scriptural argument for it. I think there's a better than passing chance, but I'm not going to get distracted by that. I'm going to do the work. And the work now is simple. The work is that you do not let people give their souls away because they're ignorant. You don't let them do that. You don't let them change their DNA. You don't let them take God's instruction booklet and hack it with big pharma biotech garbage. Okay? We don't do that anymore. We're not going to just sit back and watch all the kids because the parents don't want to have to stay home and educate them, literally be given away. And I hope and I pray every day the Lord has mercy on them. And people think I'm extreme, and that's fine. You can think I'm extreme, but let me tell you something. Say I'm wrong. Say that all that happens is you get a little medical shot in your arm. Okay. But the same people who did this were willing in ignorance to take the chance of giving away all on something they don't even know what it is, that tells the body to do something that at a minimum has serious problems and that may have a lot more damage to it. Because why do you think they're putting all that bandwidth everywhere? You think it's because they need to go ahead and download faster videos or music? Get real. You are seeing the matrix built around you. You are seeing people swallow the blue pills by the thousands. And if you're not building your hovercraft, I don't know what the hell you're waiting for. The message is already here. Do I have to put the glasses on? Do I have to do a Morpheus impression? Is that what I have to do?
Yes.
Theo, the choice is yours. You can choose the one, Jesus, God, or you can go back to sleep and be slaughtered like every other sheep. Those are your choices. Those are all of our choices. And you don't have to like it. You say, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Believe me, this is what I do. It's a hamster ball trapped in a balding head. I get it. We all want something easier. We want something better. I do too. If you can think of it, I'll follow you. I can't think. I'm not that smart a guy. See, I can't figure that out. What I can figure out is what it is we can do so we only have to die once. It's the second death you want to avoid. And so what does that mean for here? What does that mean? You guys know that I do something very few people like to do, which is I can find all the areas: politics, economics, spirituality, Christianity, all of these things. I put it all together, and I do that for a very specific reason, because it's all connected. You can't say, oh, in this area I'm not. No. And we're going to have to start holding each other to account. I'm going to have to hold myself to greater account. That means I'm going to have to fast. I'm going to have to stop being such a fat ass who likes to eat potato chips that much as stress relief. And we're going to have to demand more of each other and more of ourselves. And we're going to have to be brothers and sisters in Christ. And when the system boxes us out, we have to help one another. And we're going to have to be strong, and we're going to have to be brave, and we're going to have to be there for people we don't know. And in the challenges, we can't anticipate where the whole system is going to hate us. And Christ warned us, I want to say Matthew 24, maybe, warned us that we would be hated as he was hated. And so we understand him a little more. You know, our Puritan ancestors, the people who actually made America great before America made itself corrupt, understood that they were trying to live a life as close to what Christ did so they could have some empathy, some understanding, some glimmering of what it was he went through. And we now are both blessed and cursed to live in an age like that, where we will be living in an age of persecution. There will be a day when I cannot do programs like this, and hopefully my words will resonate, and I will keep talking until they shut me down. And who knows, they'll make some story, they'll say some horrible thing. Tom's an awful Nazi, because I've ever been mean to anyone. I haven't been nasty to anyone, in or out group, because I respect people. And people don't have choices what they are. I don't hate anyone for what their group is. I do hate people's beliefs. I admit that. If you're wrong and you're an idiot, I will tell you, I think you're wrong, and I think you're being an idiot. If you believe something I think is apostasy and falsehood, I will tell you it's apostasy and falsehood. I could lie to you. I'm a very good liar, but why would I do that? What's your benefit? What do you gain? What do I gain? I'm not trying to use you. You want to send me a couple bucks? Send me a couple bucks. Send a super chat. I'll put the Venmo up. You want to make my day go now? But Dana did it. All right. But you know what? That's not really why I do this. Although I tell you, one day, if I ever find the right people, the right resources, I can do this a lot better. I mean, I can lead, and I can solve certain problems. And I have friends, and they came to me, and they're like, Tom, come on, you can do this. I was like, Tom does not want to do these things. I mean, I fought in the public eye for years, and it takes a toll on you. I mean, I've earned my gray hairs for speaking truth, and I didn't even speak deep truths. I spoke surface level truths, to be honest. Yeah, the system hates white people. Why? Because they're high agency. Why? Because it wants to control everybody. Why? Because they want to make the people who are most capable of offering resistance not do so. Not very difficult to understand why they do it. And will it ultimately lead to a genocide of people of European origin in this country? Maybe. If enough people resist, at least they've put the pieces in play. But it's sort of the war of all against all. I mean, if you've read, no one reads their history. Go read Thomas Hobbes, Leviathan. What he said was the war of all against all was what the state needed to become the Leviathan. And the state wants to be the Leviathan. That's why it always encourages wars between countries. Why, even as they come up with all these global agreements together, they're still conflicting with one another, because war is the health of the state, and the health of the state is the sickness of the people. That is the thing. As a Christian, our life should be about Christ. It should not be about Christ. It should be Christ. For so long we've lived in grace and comfort, but the time is at hand which will divide from the chaff. Amen, brother. It seems as if things need to accelerate in order to wake them up. So let me give you a calendar. Y'all want me to play, put on my prediction hat. Things will hold up okay through September. They want to get the kids on the program. Mid to late September, October, early October, that's when things start getting funny again. The harvest doesn't come in right. Maybe a big hurricane, drought conditions throughout the U.S., food scarcity. You all are following this. It's a problem. Cyber attacks destroy logistics, And, they want the economy going forward enough because you want desperation. They don't want you to see the guiding hand, the hidden hand behind this, that every step of the way makes things worse for you. Because if you know who's responsible and hold them to account, the game is up. And there are plenty of people who are servants of evil. And people who are self-serving are servants of evil too. They just don't realize it the same way. I mean, go read In God We Must. I talk about it. The root of how sins connect to external behaviors, and that when you get caught up in your own lack of virtue, and people say, oh, well, that stuff doesn't matter. I believe what I want. Well, believe what you want. That's fine. You have the right to be wrong. But those of us who are right also have the right not to be dragged down into the pit with you. And that's what it's all about. That we figure a way out of that mess. And that we have to do it together. We are going to have to build our own nation in exile, with our own currencies, our own communications and all the things that are required. And it's not one. There's different groups, hopefully friendly to one another. And it could be as small as you and 10 people in your community. I don't need to know everything of it. I'm going to do stuff up here in New England. That's what I do. I cause problems. Hi, I'm Tom. I live in Maine. Come find me. Because people up here trust me because they know I don't bullshit them. And I'm not about to change that. Not because I have all the answers or not because I want to be the guy. They trust me actually because I don't want to be the guy. It's kind of ironic how that works. Because I'm not here to say, oh, there's an easy solution. It's not as easy as having a politician or giving someone else your work. It's our work. It's the work. It's the only work that counts. There's a lot of people on that path that leads to destruction. That's it. So that's where my mind is at. That's what I have to share with you. And I'm going to try to put some ground beneath that. I'm going to use July, June, the end of June, part of July, however long it takes, to figure out what those truths are. And, if you want to participate in that discussion, come over to Telegram at Atlantic Homeland. I'm there, what those truths are. But I'll tell you the ones I'm not negotiating. That we're going to stand for Christ against forced interventions, and we're going to stand for the people who stood outside because that shows courage and character. That's important. We're going to stand for families, for the traditional belief, and we're going to stand for each other. And look, I'm not a rabid individualist. Individualism isn't the answer in this moment. That we need to be one. We need to be the body, the bride. And I think that's what it is. I think that unity, and I think if we find each other, we'll find we have strength we didn't know. And I think the Lord will bless this endeavor. And what does it look like? For me, it's about putting a message out there. And for you, it's about relevant in your personal life. I don't pretend everyone's going to join some monastic order up here. The world doesn't work that way. Although if people want to do that, man, I'm totally down with that. I will. You give me a group of 100 people, and I'll start wearing Puritan garb every day. I'd love to, but I'm keeping the beard. We're going to do some updates. Everything changes with a new generation. Dana swore she's never going to wear that, so don't look for her to participate to wear Puritan garb. Yeah, she's her tradition's too evangelical for that, which is sort of ironic. But we're not going to get into the quirks of congregationalism. We'll have to update them. Maybe we'll Puritan. No, it's not about the aesthetics. Are just for fun. It's about a relationship. It's about a relationship between you and Christ. But it's also about a relationship between you and other people. You have to think that Christ wants to reach every person. So our job is to help people get there. And my job is to go ahead and give people who are on the fence a little bit of courage to go ahead and not make a mistake they know better than to make. And each of us can do that for one another. And I think that's a nice place to take it. So I'm going to say the prayer now. We got, 43 minutes in, so I can go up to another 15 minutes. If you guys want to throw questions out, thoughts, stories, whatever, things you'd like me to talk about, I will do so. And that's what we'll do. So otherwise, bow your heads, and if you're not a Christian, by the way, because I know some of you aren't Christians, this is for you. Today's the day. Today's the day that you can go ahead and find something. And look, I understand people say, oh, it's just a book. It's just the universe began with a word. A thought precedes an action. This is how it happens. And you think of light. What is light? It's a vibration over time and space that leads to certain discrete outcomes. It all begins with that thought commitment and that voicing of it. We say in your voice, I'm giving my life over to Christ. And you die to the world to live to something greater. And that's something for each and every one of us. And that's the message of today. So Heavenly Father, yeah, I know I do look like Friar Tuck, right? Oh, God, I know. All right, Heavenly Father, I pray that you give us the discernment to follow your will in all things, the courage to stand against those who oppose us, the wisdom to reach those who can be reached, and the fortitude to actually be able to walk away when the battle is not yours, and we know those are lost, even when our loved ones are there. We know these are going to be days of time of tribulation and temptation. And I just pray for each and every person here today that that every person here can be blessed by the Holy Spirit and be a beacon to lead people toward you, Christ, in these later days. And that we hopefully find one another here on earth or there in heaven as we come to serve your will, Father. And we ask that you bless this endeavor and lead and give wisdom to your servants. So in Jesus' mighty name, I pray that for each and every one of you. What do I think of the meat magnet video? I think it's interesting. I don't know if it's someone doing something funny or meddling meat. I don't know. I've seen it. I'm more John the Baptist spitting hellfire. I don't know what I am, you know. I'm just a guy who comes out there and says truth. You know, I look at the history of it. Like, I look at people, like, both biblically and historically. Take a Savonarola, the Florentine, or, you know, like Cromwell and all that. I mean, you look at what works, and every age is different. Yeah, I don't know. Question. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Since Dana shared it, Battlefield Cathedral is absolutely awesome. Dana put some good stuff there. It's not for everybody, but hey, you know, it could be for you. So if there's no other questions, and I don't know about the meat magnet thing. I've seen the video, Alan. I just don't know. Sometimes people make videos to discredit things. I haven't heard this being a massive problem. I have seen the thing. Could happen. I don't know. I mean, I will say one thing that's cool, though. I don't want to bring it too close because it'll cause problems. But up here, sitting on Massachusetts, we went ahead and did something really kind of fun. And I can't put it too near anything because it'll screw up everything. But I literally have like a 52-pound magnet here, right? So if someone decides they're going to cause problems, let's just go fire truck with a rock star. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't been that holy of a man in my life. I think Fire Chuck's been a better man than I have, but he's probably more capable of opening things too. You know, the funny thing is the Lord always gives you an opportunity for humility. Like, I can sit and do really complicated things, but I can't even open a friggin' fucking, sorry, cursing, but I can't open a stupid plastic container, which is kind of nutty because it's already been opened. There's a staple in there that I'm not getting past. See, half of looking competent is knowing how not to do things you suck at. See, they're stuck together. These two magnets are literally, they don't want. There we go. This is like, yeah, these are the neodymium magnets. So you can see they are strong as anything. So anyways, we'll put that on Vermont. You can hear how strong it is when it connected to that light bulb. Actually, you can't see it there. Great, I screwed out again. All right, so there you go. It's on Vermont now. But yeah, I keep magnets around just in case I ever need to check something there. If you ever see me work with machinery, you know, we all have our abilities and talents in life. I was sharing this with a friend earlier today. I am so bad with high mechanical stuff. Like, I can kind of play with tech things, and I understand concepts. Like, I can look at blueprints and describe them. But ask me to do something with buttons and things, and it's just, I'm just, like, not good at it. Never have. But and that's okay, by the way. We can't be good at everything, you know? It's important to learn some humility, and I try to avoid things I'm bad at. But oddly enough, I end up doing it. I just end up doing things the old-fashioned way. Like when I was in my garden, you know, rather than tilling it, I used the old shovel 1.0. Do I need a Georgia license plate? Well, you know, the funny thing about the wall of plates here, well, actually, here, give me a second. I'll get up so you can see it a little better. Well, actually, there's a story to it. I have a Georgia plate. I think I have one Georgia plate. You'll probably see it a little better if I turn it that way. I think you can. Let's see if I did a good job. Maybe I did. Yeah, I know. I have a bunch more. And if you actually go up, see if you can see it. Okay, there you go. You can actually see the whole wall over there. So what you would see if you see my wall a little more clearly is, yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm rooting for Les Habitants, too, for what it's worth. I hopefully, you know, I have nothing against Vegas, but, you know, I'd love to. Nova Scotia, Vermont, Quebec, Massachusetts, New York, Prince Edward Island, Labrador, New Jersey, Ontario, Connecticut, New Brunswick, there's Rhode Island and Maine up in the corner. So basically, I have all of the Northeast, which is quite intentional, by the way, because ultimately, I do think when things shake out, people need to go different directions, and I think New England specifically needs to do something different than it's done. For those of you who aren't familiar with my channel, I do not think America as a concept works very well at this point. I think they would do better to separate into our separate cultural, levels of things. We got a couple Southerners in here. You guys tell me if things would be better if you guys did your own thing. And I do think, and for what it's worth, and I know people would find this controversial, if my thesis is correct and that we see a lot of people who chose medical interventions become non-entities in the future is going to look very different. Up here in Maine, for instance, we're probably going to lose 3 out of every 4 people if my own predictions right. And the people who are left are going to be a lot more like me. So, that's what it is. Mind the kindred of cooking with Tom. It's good to see you, John. Yeah. Oh, by the way, too bad about the pens. They stunk this year. But at least with the pens, the one good thing about the pens, just so I can say it, is they lose quick or they go all the way. They don't waste time. But I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is, I've always thought sort of geopolitically and how I did this. And, I got my new Albion flags over here for those who haven't been around a while. Still got it here. It's all here. The infamous pines and lines, all that stuff, good stuff. But ultimately, at this point in the game, and there may be political manifestations, I don't know, but that's not really what's important. What's important is how the Christian piece of it works out and that people who understand this stand with one another. This is going to look way more 16th century and 17th century than I ever thought it would. And it has to, because every ideology is going to surrender to this. Why? Because ideologies seek power, and people who come from Christian areas want to go ahead and, they want to seek salvation. And that's what we're seeking. All we are seeking is the right to stay what we are. That's all it really is. And we will not be permitted that. And there's, I do believe there's a moral aspect to war and that you're fighting for a just cause. Yeah, the nation isn't being led by the A team unless the A is followed by 2 SSs. And I mean that in both senses of the word. That's literally what we have here. So, but yeah, I mean, for all the people in other areas, all of us need to think our own sort of ways. But I'll help people throughout. I have much love for people in every region, especially in the Midwest and the South, which I know better. I don't know the West as much. Nothing against the West. I haven't been out there in 20 years. I left there running and screaming. When I went out there last time, I was like, literally, I had like flashback trauma. I'm not a Westerner at this point. It's just not where it's at. And you know what? Actually, John makes a good point. I forgot I was going to say this. Y'all enjoy when I do my little cooking videos. Maybe I'll do a couple more of them. Maybe I'll even let you pick. I'll make something, and I'll just go out there and we'll talk and we'll go for it. And I'm just going to say things that I think are true. And when they shut me down, they shut me down. It's fine. Find another platform. And I have some other people who want to help. But ultimately, we're going to need to ask a lot more of ourselves. And consider this a preparation. You don't have to believe me, but eventually I'll probably be proven right. You need a garden tour. I will show you my garden boxes, but I have to be honest with you, I'm disappointed in them. We put some tomatoes and stuff in there that we had bought rather than growing from seed because there was a lot going on and we were doing multiple projects. We couldn't get what we wanted in terms of development so far. Although I will say we've been putting in some orchard trees, which will be very nice. And maybe I'll even do a show out there one day, see how the coverage comes in here. But yeah, I mean, the problem is I don't get to share nice things with you because I have people who would come threaten me otherwise. People have threatened my life before for some of the things I say. And you'd be surprised how narrow they are. There are people who are in this chat now who are watching this, who are literally waiting to do something terrible to me or my family if they knew everything about us. And this is something that has happened. I mean, I'm sure some of you have figured out over the passage of time that maybe I haven't always been in the exact same space, right? And that, things have changed. And that's something that we have to suggest just because that is something where in our town they would cause problems for us. If they could, and mind you, where we live, in the Greenville area, they're not going to, the people here aren't going to go for it. But that ultimately, this is something you do have to think about. This is something you have to be mindful of when you do this, because we live in a world of really malicious people, and the people who are fighting against are evil and unhinged. So they're going to do wicked things, and the system's going to defend them. I've had so many felonies committed against me, and the cops said, "Oh, that's not a." Oh, well, here, what does this law? Oh, that law doesn't apply. I'm like, okay, so yeah. And then you call up, and you understand that the system is not here to defend what is right, because it's not about virtue and liberty. It's about liberty and justice. And justice at this point is who can compose the most violence. Go watch anything from the Pacific Northwest if you need to know about that. And that's the future. And what's going to happen is that the people who made terrible decisions are going to be told by the people who made them make those terrible decisions to blame the people who warned them the things not to do. And that's your future, not too long from there. I need a staff now that I have. I would love a staff, actually. I have a cool staff somewhere. Where did I put it? It's probably in the basement. Yeah, I've had an interesting life, and I have a hunch it's going to get weirder. But anyway, it has been my pleasure to spend a little bit of time with each and every one of you. Let's just see real fast what you're saying, and let me give you. We'll give you a shout out to everyone I didn't cover. Who did I get? So John knows I get him. John's a friend, so he's a good guy. Let's see who else we got here. Is anyone I missed here? What I need is a veggie to grow an apartment. I think you said scallions or green onions. Yeah, green onions are absolutely easy. Here's how you do it. Buy the onions, put them in a cup of water about yay big. And you can go ahead and just put them in there, start clipping from the top, and they'll keep growing back on you for a few times. How often you change the water? Once a week you change the water. There you go. Dane's tip. She'll tell you what's up there. And we'll do some more stuff. Maybe we'll do some preservation videos. But mostly you're going to hear me do sermons, and you're going to see me. If you... All right, give me a second. Probably... Well, you guys tell me. You want me to go that far? Because I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm combining this stuff. That's how I do it. But if you think I should, you tell me. Leave a comment. Y'all listen. You've been, subjected to this. Is it my calling? Is it what I should do? I don't know. I'm going to pray on it. I tell you that. I'm going to definitely pray. I'm going to fast. And Dana wanted me to mention. Do you have the link to the project? Okay. So Dana's going to put a link in here. You want to see something? We'll close with something creepy to close out the program. There's this project that they're trying to push now. It's an art project, and art is just religious ritual masquerading in public affairs, called the Giant Project, where they basically want to build like a 13-story giant in 21 different cities where it can take on the face of different national heroes. So imagine seeing like a huge thing of George Floyd somewhere, or AOC, or whoever they say is a national hero. God, I don't even want to think of what to put. Or they can take a scan of you and put up as a selfie. But some of us think this could even be, a precursor to something like the image of a beast. Because what do they want you to do? Worship a giant idol. And if humanity makes an idol of itself, isn't any less of an idol. This is something you kind of want to avoid, but this is what we do, this self-adulation, this self-worship. It's at the root of all these sort of problems, and what masquerades as art often ends up being something that's far more sinister. I mean, it's a certain way of looking at the world where once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's really what I do. I give you a different filter, a different way to interpret the world. Sometimes we look at the world with, sort of glasses like that. Oh, thank you for enjoying Come Out of Babylon. I appreciate that, Patrick. It is a good book. Here you go. Check it out. Come Out of Babylon, available on Amazon and all sorts of other places if you look around, and we'll see. It might be my last book. This is the first time in years I haven't felt an urge to write another book. I really haven't. And that's unusual for me, but I'll go out there and say things, which is kind of sad because I actually like writing about history and things like that, but there's just no time anymore. We have to focus on things now, and I have to focus. No, 21-foot statues in 10 cities. No, 21 cities, actually. It's the statue, but the statues are going to be, I think it's like 100 feet. They're bigger than that. They're in, Phoenix is the first place you're trying to do it, actually, which is kind of an interesting place. But I will go on. I'm going to do more interviews. I will go on with Lamprey again. I'll probably go on with Eki. And my friend from Texas, James, is going to do something with me, too. He wants to do some conversation. Will they transmit 5G or 6G, rather? Yeah, I think they probably will. Absolutely. These are things to watch for. I mean, look, they're not building all this technology to make your life better. I mean, you do understand. I mean, if you really understand what elites want, what they want is they want to control you without having to deal with you. And it's not hard to predict that's what they're going to do. They've done that for a couple hundred years. That's why people have had to resist and form commonwealths and fights and all that stuff. And, we get caught up in these ideas. It's the structure of government. It's the form of government. It's the party of government. No, it's the powerful people do crappy things, and trusting them is always a mistake. I mean, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you know what? That's why the meek have to inherit the earth. Christ knew what he was talking about. People read the Bible and think it's about some world apart from the world we live in. Christ understood reality, too. we could learn a lot more from it. Something to think about while you go forward. So go read your Bible. You don't need to hear any more from me for tonight. I will be back soon. Thank you very much for everyone who's been here. Thank you for those who support the program. If you want to support more, go buy a book. And if you have any big ideas, I'm not hard to find on Telegram. At Tom Kaczynski, that's what I think my name is there, if I remember right. And at Atlantic Homelands, where I'm hanging out. Otherwise, God bless each and every one of you. Be praying for your families. Eventually, we may start a new feature, which is going to be morbid, but we're going to do it. I'll talk about it a little later. But Dana and I are praying for the people who have taken medical interventions. If there's someone you want us to pray for, don't put it publicly, put it privately. The list is getting longer all the time. We pray. Let the Lord's will be done. God bless each and every one of you. You guys have a good night, and thank you for spending a little time with me. All right, goodbye.